Alright guys, you guys all wanted smaller Yugitube uploads, so if you guys are a smaller Yugituber and you want to send me a video, do that as an unlisted video on my Facebook or YouTube. Please subscribe to these guys after you check out their channels and determine if you want to subscribe or not. Until then guys, enjoy the video.
What is up, YouTube? Avenged TCG here with an Amazoness deck profile for you guys. Now, Amazoness, they could be the top tier deck. But they can't at the same time. If Konami gave them more support, they could definitely be a top tier deck. But right now, they could probably, they might be able to win with some support. Like, you'd have to use a lot of cards to make them better. On their own, they could probably stand against a couple cards, but I've noticed against Fire Fists, Mermails, they don't do as well, because they don't have the power that they do. They don't have the draw power, they don't have the swarming ability that the top tier decks do today. Now, I'm running 2 Amazoness Queen. Now, Amazoness Queen is the strongest Amazoness monster there is, with 2400 attack and 1800 defense, and its effect is that Amazoness monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. It's a good card, but you don't want to draw into it too much. So I have 2, and even if you do get it, you probably already have a strong Xyz monster on the field and are ready to take out your opponent. Now, Amazoness Swordswoman, I'm using 3 because its effect is pretty good. Its attack is okay, but it could be better. Now, your opponent takes all battle damage you would have taken from a battle involving this card. So, say they have Excalibur on the field. They've already doubled its attack points. It has 4,000 attack and it attacks your Swordswoman. They take all the damage you would have taken. It's a really useful card, and it saved my life in plenty of duels. Amazoness Chainmaster. I'm using 2 because 3 seems kind of repetitive. If you have 3, it's an okay card. You don't want to use it too much, though, because it has a costly effect, and the effect is pretty pricey. It's a pricey effect, and it also has downside. If you don't know what monsters they have in their hand, or if they have no monsters at all, it could be very, very bad for you if you have this card on the field. So, it's good for Xyz summoning, and its effect could be useful. If you know they had just taken a Max C into their hand using Pot of Duality, then of course, you're going to want to have this card on the field and take that Max C from them. Amazoness Fighter. Now, Amazoness Fighter. You take no battle damage from battles involving this card. It's really useful. It's one of the best Amazoness cards. I'm using 3 for the sake of that. It can't be, you can't take any damage. Even if it is destroyed, there's no downside to it to being destroyed other than you don't have it on the field anymore. 2 Amazoness Archers. Now, Amazoness Archer, it's kind of a personal preference for me. I'm using 2 because I think its effect could be useful in some situations. That's why I'm not using 3, because if you draw into it too much, then there's the downside of that its effect is pretty costly. You have to tribute 2 monsters to do 1200 damage. It's not that good. If you only have 2 monsters on the field, it's going to be a really useless effect. You don't want a useless effect monster on the field. You have to use it for Xyz summons, or if your opponent only has 1,000 life points left, go for it. Take it out. Amazoness Sage. The card is really good, but you don't want 3. Again, it's personal preference, but you don't want a useless effect monster on the field. If they don't have any spell or trap cards when you attack with it, then it's really useless. Amazoness Tiger. Same thing. One Amazoness Tiger is enough. You don't want to have too many in the deck because of its effect. You can only control 1. Even if you have 2 and you draw in the first turn, that's a bad draw. That's a -1. You don't want to go -1 on your first turn. It also gains 400 attack. It's a really good card. And it's the only monster that can be attacked. If it's in defense position and it has Amazoness Heirloom, it's a really good card. Amazoness Scouts. It's like an effect veiler for your opponent's side of the field. So if you use it and you tribute it, then all your Amazoness monsters can't be destroyed by effects of spells, traps, or effects of monsters. So if your opponent activates Dark Hole, you're safe. If they activate Mirror Force, you're safe. It's a really good card. Max C. This gives you draw power, but you don't want too much draw power because you don't want to draw into too many cards. Say you draw into an Amazoness Archer and then another Amazoness Archer with Max C. That is not good. You do not want to go -1 with Max C. 1 is enough, but if you want to use 2 Max C and 1 Effect Veiler, that's your personal preference. I'm using 1 Max C and 2 Effect Veilers. Now, for the 2 Effect Veilers, these cards have saved my life. When I was versing the Fishman deck, and that guy summoned Spine Gilman, I activated Effect Veiler right away so I could save my Swordswoman. You want to save your monsters because their effects can activate in the graveyard. There is no monster that activates in the graveyard for the Amazonas. Reinforcement of the army. It's good for getting more Amazonas cards to your hand. Amazonas Spellcaster. Now, if your opponent has an Excalibur on the field and it has 4,000 attack points, you're going to want to use Amazonas Spellcaster to swap attack points for that turn. You're able to take out his Excalibur, and you're also to take out a big chunk of his life points. The Warrior Returning Alive. If one of your monsters is destroyed, say your Queen is destroyed, you want to get it back into your hand and save your monster. Mystical Space Typhoon. It's pretty self-explanatory. Same thing with Forbidden Lance. It's a good way to save your monsters from effects. Amazonas Fighting Spirit. I'm running 2 because of its effect. Its effect is, if an Amazonas monster attacks a monster with a higher attack, it gains 1,000 attack during a damage step only. It's a really good card. It's really useful, and it's also a good way to give your Amazonas monsters the boost they need to be a stronger deck. Amazonas Heirloom. It saves your monster from being destroyed by battle once per turn. And also, if it attacks, it destroys the monster it attacked, even if it's a stalemate. So, say it's Amazonas Swordswoman versus, say they're running the same deck. Say it's a mirror deck. They have another Amazonas Swordswoman. And you have Heirloom, though. If you attack, it's not destroyed, and it destroys their target. Or if it's, say, you attack, like, their Queen or something like that, then it saves your monster and it destroys theirs. But you do lose life points. It's got a downside. Magnum Shield. If you want to use 2, that's a good idea, because this card has a really good effect. It gains attack equal to its original defense in attack position, and it gains defense equal to its original attack in defense position. So it's a good way to boost up your monsters to be stronger than most monsters that your opponent can normal summon. Amazonas Village. It's really personal preference. I'm using 2. You could use 1 and use 2 Orichalcos, or you could use 2 and use 1 Orichalcos. It doesn't really matter. It's personal preference. But it boosts your monster's attack points by 200, and any Amazonas monster destroyed by battle or card effect sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 Amazonas monster from the deck with a level equal to or lower to that destroyed Amazonas monster. So it's a really good effect. Amazonas Shamanism. I'm only using 1 because you have to destroy all Amazonas monsters you control and special summon the number that you had destroyed in face-up defense position. So it has a downside. But if you have 2 scouts and 2 archer, then you can get out some really good monsters. Reinforced Truth. I'm side decking 1 and I'm main decking 1. For the reason that you can special summon 1 level 2 or lower warrior type monster. So you can bring out your scout and then use its effect. Mirror Force. Pretty self-explanatory. Queen's Pawn. What an Amazonas monster you control destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard. You can special summon 1 level 4 Amazonas monster from your graveyard. So, say you have an Amazonas Swordswoman. You know they're going to try and go for a stronger monster next turn. You're going to want to bring out another level 4, and then Cease Summon to save your monster from being destroyed. Amazonas Archers. It's personal preference again. Like I'm saying, if your opponent's monster declares an attack while you control an Amazonas monster, all monsters your opponent controls will change to a face-up attack position, lose 500 attack as long as they remain face-up on the field, and must attack all of your monsters. Well, with all of their monsters. So they'd have to basically destroy all your monsters. So unless you have a Mirror Force, it's a trap card for yourself. You want them to attack you. So if you have a Mirror Force, that takes out all their monsters at once. Dramatic Rescue. Activate only when a card is activated that targets an Amazonas monster. Return that targeted monster to the hand and special summon 1 other monster from your hand. So, say you have your Swordswoman on the field. Say you activate Heirloom. That targets your Amazonas Swordswoman. You can activate this card and you can bring out Queen. And then normal summon your Swordswoman again. It's a really good card, but I'm only using 1 because, yet again, it's personal preference and you don't want to draw into it too much. Amazonas Willpower. Now, this card is basically Call of the Haunted for Amazonas. So, I'm running 2 of them and 2 Call of the Haunted. So, it's a really good card. It allows you to bring any Amazonas monster from the graveyard and special summon in an attack position. It cannot change its battle position. It must attack if able. So, there is a downside, but it's probably going to be, you're probably going to use it for an Cease Summon. Solemn Warning. I'm using 1. You don't have to use a Solemn Warning, but it's recommended. It's a good staple card to have, and it can save you from an Effect Veiler or something like that. Evil Swarm Oribus. Now, you're going to say, this is an Amazonas deck. Why are you using an Evil Swarm? I'm using an Evil Swarm because of its effect. It doesn't require that you use an Evil Sword monster to Xyz summon it, and it has a pretty good effect. One-Eyed Skill Gainer. Yes, this card, it might not be that good, but if your opponent has an Xyz monster that you want to get the effect of, you want to use One-Eyed Skill Gainer. There are a lot of level 4 monsters in this deck, so it'll be pretty easy to bring out, and it'll be pretty easy to take your opponent's Xyz monster's effect. Violent Sigma. It's personal preference, but I prefer to use it in this deck. Utopia. It's a really good rank 4 monster. You're going to want to use it in this deck to stop your monster from attacking your other monsters. Cosmic Heroes King Arthur. Now, it's a good card. People don't know that it's a really good card. If it will be destroyed by battle, you can attach 1 Xyz material from this monster instead. So it can't be destroyed by battle. When you do, it gains 500 attack. So you're boosting its attack. It's a good card. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't use it, and you do 500 damage to your opponent. It's a good card. Blade Armor Ninja. Now, this card has saved me plenty of times. You bring it out and you detach 1 Xyz material from it, and then you can just double its attack points, basically, if they don't have any monsters on the field. It can attack twice this turn. That makes it a really useful card to have, and it's also, I'd use it in any warrior deck. Black Ship of Corn. Now, its effect is really good, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a staple for this deck. Silent Honors Arknight. It's probably going to be a really expensive card when it comes out because of its effect. You detach 2 Xyz materials from this card, and then target 1 face-up attack position special summon monster your opponent controls, and attach it to this card as an Xyz material. So, it's a really good card. It stops itself from being destroyed once. So, if you use it, it could be a really useful card. Heroic Champion Excalibur. I'm using 2 because of its effect. It doubles its original attack by detaching 2 Xyz materials. Now, if you detach 2 Xyz materials, then you can also bring them back with Amazoness Willpower or Call of the Haunted. Then you could Xyz summon again. It's a really useful card. Maestroke. It's a pretty good rank 4, so why not use it? Evolval Chain. It's good for bringing out your Xyz, not your Xyz, your Amazoness to the top of the deck or to your graveyard to summon with Amazoness Willpower and then Xyz. Dagusto Emerald. You shuffle 3 monsters in your graveyard into the deck and then draw 1 card. It's a good way to bring your Amazoness back. Say you have 2 Swordswoman and a Chainmaster, or 2 Queens and a Chainmaster. You can bring them back and draw 1 card. And if you draw them, then it's really good. Gaga Cowboy. If you're using 2, then it's a really good card. You might as well use 2. They come in the tin. It's a really cheap card to get. So its effect is really good. If it's an attack position, it can get 1,000 more attack by detaching, and then your opponent's monster loses 500 attack. So it would have 2,500 attack, and your opponent, say they had a 2,500 attack, it would have 2,000. So then you take out their monster in a duel. It's a really good effect. And if it's in defense position, it has really high defense, and would also be able to do damage to them with its effect. Now, for the side deck, I'm using Buster Blader. Buster Blader is really good against dragon types, and especially since this is a warrior deck, it's a really good card to run. I'm not main decking it for the sake of it's an Amazoness deck, and it's really not fitting into the deck, but if it's game 2 or 3, and you've already noticed that they are using dragons, use Buster Blader. 2 Cardies. You don't want too much draw power in this deck because you don't want to stall. If you draw too many cards, say you draw 2 Swordswoman and a Chainmaster, that's good, but then what are you going to do? Say you draw Chainmaster and then you draw the 2 Amazoness Swordswoman from Cardies effect. It's going to stall you. It's also ends your turn immediately, so you can't use them that turn. I'm side decking it because it could be useful for draw power. Dark Hole. You don't want to use this with any of your Amazoness monsters on the field. That's why I didn't main deck it. It's a good card. I'm not gonna lie, it's a really good card. But if you main deck it, that destroys your Amazoness monsters, and you can't get them back. It's hard to bring back your Amazoness monsters because there isn't really another Amazoness monster that says, special summon this Amazoness monster when this card is normal summoned. There's no way you can bring it back easily. Prohibition. Now, this is good for stopping your opponent's plans. Say they have an entire deck revolving around one thing. Say they're running a Final Countdown deck. Yes, Final Countdown is limited, but there are people that are still going to be using it. Say they use Final Countdown. Use Prohibition to stop their Final Countdown. Or stop one of their max C chains. Stop them from bringing out a card that would help them win. Say they're running Exodia. Say, call Exodia the Forbidden One. That way, they won't be able to bring out Exodia, and their deck will pretty much just be just defense. The Seal of Orichalcos. I'm running 2 in my side deck because I thought, I'll try and build an Amazonas Orichalcos deck. It didn't really work, and it's hard to bring out more Amazonas monsters when you can't special summon. They're pretty weak on their own, and even with the 500 attack point boost, it's really hard to be able to win with just Amazonas monsters. Reinforced Truth. Like I said, I'm side decking it, and I'm also main decking it because it's really personal preference. Hero Ring. Target one warrior type monster with 1500 attack or less. Most Amazonas monsters do have 1500 attack or less. Monsters your opponent controls cannot, with 1900 or more attack, cannot attack that target. It's a really good card, but I'm side decking it for the fact that it could be useful, but it could also be very Interdimensional matter transporter. It's really personal preference. If you have an Amazonas swordswoman, you don't want to use this card, because then you take the damage. They would take the damage that you would have taken. And then you could bring it back with Amazonas Willpower or Call of the Haunted. Pinpoint Guard. Now, this card is really expensive. That's why I'm side decking it. I actually have the card, but its effect is really good. I don't want to main deck it because of the fact that it's... One reason is that it's an expensive card. The other reason is that it's if they have another monster to attack with, you don't want your monster to be destroyed again. Like if you can't Xyz summon the next turn, then it's going to be a pretty useless card to have. Vanity's Emptiness. Neither player can special summon monsters. If you use Orichalcos in the main deck, and you don't want people to special summon, use it Vanity's Emptiness. And then they won't be able to bring out stronger monsters. You'll have like 2900 attack, 2000 attack. It'll be hard for them to come back. Copy Knight. Pretty self-explanatory. It's really useful for Xyz summoning. Desperate Tag. If a face-up attack position monster you control is destroyed by battle, during damage calculation, you can reduce the battle damage from this battle to 0 and special summon one level 4 or lower warrior type from your hand at the end of the damage step. So, it'll be a good way to bring out Amazonas Scouts and save the rest of your monsters from any spell or trap cards that might target them. Light of Intervention. Thanks to Ghost Tricks this format, you're going to want to run Light of Intervention in either the main deck or the side deck. Because if you use Light of Intervention, they won't be able to set their Ghost Tricks. So they won't be able to bring out all their Ghost Trick monsters or set them face down with their effects. So it's a good way to stall Ghost Tricks, and if they don't have any monsters out on the field and you get Light of Intervention out first turn, then there it goes. There goes their entire plan right out the window. And that's the Amazonas deck, guys. I've been doing pretty good with this deck. The only problems I've run into are Fire Fist and Mermails. Boojins, they're okay against, because of the cards could in turn favor your monsters. If they use, say, like they use the Wetlands Field spell, it's an okay card, but it boosts up your monsters too, not just theirs. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe for more. Check out my videos, and I'll see you guys next time.